Welcome back to Zaka Stokvel Insights. We've just seen how the White House Stokvel has transformed from casual gatherings into a brotherhood with a structured savings model. This system not only strengthened their businesses, but also helped them to navigate family expenses. I'm now joined by Stokvel and Burial Society sector expert from Thai Vision Media, Thabiso Masurubele, to dive deeper into their journey. Thabiso, thank you very much for joining us. Another male Stokvel group, another male group that's very, direct or intentional in keeping their business model the same. So can you just share, moving from social gatherings into a savings model, how easy is it for Stokvels to transform and to change their nature?
Thanks for having me, Nons. It's not easy, especially, when you look at the relationship that you have. They usually say money and friends don't mix. And sometimes, it's not a happy ending when you've got friends and money involved. So what we always encourage people to do is to separate the relationship that they have with each other as friends and separate that from the relationship they'll have with each other as colleagues or partners in a stokvel. So what we encourage them to do is that don't look at each other as friends per se, but look at each other as people who are in this collective towards a particular financial objective. And because you're dealing with money, certain things then have to apply that don't ordinarily apply when you're dealing amongst friends. So I'll give you an example. So if it's casual and it's amongst friends, money can move. I can give you 100 Rand today and not expect it back next week. And you almost have flowing rules. There aren't any rigid rules that that you abide by. But once you're in the environment of a formalized group, such as a stokvel, and you've got a common purpose, you want to achieve something, certain things start becoming important. And one of those things becomes discipline and formality and compliance. So what those things then introduce, they introduce things like saying, we're no longer in an environment where if you don't pay me, it's okay next week. You can pay me in 2 weeks or when you can. But now there's a commitment, and that's where the discipline kicks in, where you're saying if you've taken money from the group, or if you've got an obligation to the group to pay your contribution on a set day, you've got to keep to that agreement that you have with the group. And that agreement is not only verbal, but it's also written, and you commit yourself via a signature. So the difficult part is people adopting, migrating from that casual relationship with money to the more structured and formal one. But it's a necessary transition that people have to make in order to make sure that the group survives and it stays as long as it can.
I mean, early 2000s up until now, so surely they have been making the right choices in order to have a more structured system. But here we see that some members, they do prefer depositing their funds into a stokvel account, but some have complained when it comes to services. So what would be your perspective in having to rectify something like that and making a good choice when it comes to banking solutions?
I think what people have to do, there are two things that we encourage groups to do. First is to be clear what they want to achieve as their group. Are they saving? Are they investing? And that ultimately leads them to research that will give them what financial instruments are out there for their objective. The other thing that we look at, what are the logistics around what they're doing. So for instance, you have a group of this nature, they want to get into business. So what are the products that are out there? We've seen stokvels, for instance, when they say service and all of those things, where stokvels have opened up a business account, but the business is not yet operational, and there are certain things that are linked to a business account that they might not need, or there are some things that they need that aren't part of that particular account. So a lot of research needs to go into the type of financial instruments that they look at. But what's most important is for them to clearly identify their objective and where they want to get at. Once that has become clear, they then need to shop around. So I think one of the challenges that we've seen is how people choose institutions. So people are choosing institutions because, it's accessible. There's a branch 100 meters from where I live, and so, we can make deposits easily. So we encourage people to look at the criteria that they have for choosing financial institutions, look at the products, and really make sure that they understand what those product offerings are. One of the things that we encourage people to do is to not be afraid to engage with financial institutions. One of the sad things that we've seen is that the only engagement that these groups have with financial institutions is at a level of depositing money, and that's it. And
is that a problem with trust, perhaps?
I think it's just a problem with people not appreciating the power that they have in terms of how they're engaging. So it's not appreciating the power of the rands that you have. So, for instance, one of our taglines is to say it's your money, know it, own it before you can grow it. So it's about understanding that your financial institution doesn't just stop at taking deposits. You've got every right to engage the branch manager if you're not satisfied about a particular service, and there's this detachment between people and financial institutions. And again, the thing that you mentioned does come into play, the issue of trust, where there's a huge trust deficit between people and financial institutions. And that, I think, is based primarily on the fact that people don't have information in terms of what are the full bouquet of services that they can get from financial institutions. And so they only focus on the one, which is deposits. And there's actually a whole lot more. And we think it's not only the fault of the members per se, but financial institutions also have to come to the party to begin showing what other functions and benefits they have for such groups. We always engage with financial institutions to say, guys, imagine yourselves as your own clients, to say these are guys who deposit money without fail. There's more that you can do, It shouldn't stop at having a billboard, advertising a Stokvel account, but you should actually do more. And, the different things that people can do to make sure that people appreciate the full bouquet of services that do exist, so that people choose the correct services at the correct financial institution.
Insightful indeed. I think before the break, or after the break rather, I'd like us to look at their new objective and whether they can, be able to achieve their goals realistically. So please do stay tuned. We will be back after the break.